مولاي صل وسلم دائما أبدا على حبيبك خير الخلق.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا حبيبنا نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Point 11. خالق بلا حاجة، رازق بلا مؤونة أو مؤنة. So now we pick up a little bit more pace here. We're getting into a little bit more of a theological platform. God is the creator without a need to create. He is the creator without any need to create. And He is the provider without any source of provision. God does not need a supply house to provide whatever He wants to provide to His creation. Nor did God create anything or anyone to assist Him out of any need. Human beings, we make things, and rightfully so. But oftentimes we make things, we manufacture things, we produce things because we have a need for it. So because man needed to get to higher heights, he created ladders and cranes and all kind of machinery that will allow him to access higher heights, because otherwise he would not be able to do so. Human beings made mobiles, automobiles, and boats, and airplanes, and other aspects of travel, trains, and the like, bicycles. Why? To get from one destination to the other in faster time, as well as to travel over terrain by which otherwise he would not be able to do so. He made bridges and tunnels and things like this. And none of this is wrong or blameworthy. But human beings are creating or making things, manufacturing things, because they have a need for it. God is khaliq bila haja. God created without any need for anything that He created or anyone that He created. And this is also going to get to this whole idea. We're going to deal with another point later, but the whole idea of the Christian stating that the Trinity was necessary. It was necessary for God because through it, He needed someone there to enact and express some of His qualities. We're going to get to that in a later point shortly, which we hope will really bring home this point. But that's point 11, that God is a creator without any need, and He is the provider without any stores of supply. Next point, 12. Mumitun bila makhafa, ba'ith bila mashaqqa. He is mumit bila makhafa, ba'ith bila mashaqqa. That God is the one that exacts death without any fear, and He is the one that resurrects without any difficulty. God is the one, inevitably and ultimately, that decrees and destines for any death that occurs, and have no fear and decreeing such. And He's also the one that resurrects without any difficulty. Now, a bit on this point is people experience death through many ways. There may be somebody who murders somebody, God forbid, in any fashion that they may do so. A person may die in their sleep. A person may be in a car accident. A person may fall off the cliff, or whatever means by which a person dies. Ultimately, God is the one that has destined for that death to occur at that moment in that fashion. The human beings, if they committed an act against someone that caused a person to die, They are indeed questioned and held accountable and responsible for their intention and their action. But ultimately, God is the one that destined for that person to have their life extracted from them at that moment. But this is done without any fear of any consequences from God Almighty, as human beings may experience a type of fear or trepidation by bringing about the death of someone else. Now, I want us to brace ourselves, because at this point on, we're going to get into some serious theological plateaus here, in which we're going to really examine God and His qualities and His attributes, and we're going to now begin to see the fallacious and untenable doctrine of the Christians as they have it. So, let us delve into this, and please pay close attention as we continue. Point number 13. ما زال بصفاته قديما قبل خلقه. ما زال بصفاته قديما قبل خلقه. God remained eternally with His attributes before creation. Before God created anything or anyone, He was who He is with His attributes. ما زال بصفاته قديما, pre-eternally, before His creation. We understand that point? God pre-eternally existed with all of His attributes before any creation. Let's continue. Number 14. لم يزدد بكونهم شيئا لم يكن قبلهم من صفته. And the creation, the coming about of creation, did not increase. It did not increase anything that was not already from His attributes prior to the creation. Again, the coming about of creation did not increase God one iota at all, anything that was not already from His attributes prior to their creation. God did not all of a sudden gain and obtain new attributes or qualities as a result of creation being created. We understand this? God did not acquire, or God did not was not increased at all by the creation anything that was not already with Him prior to the creation. Next point, 15. وكما كان بصفاته أزليا كذلك لا يزال عليها أبديا. Just as He was with His attributes pre-eternally, like that He remains with His attributes forever. Just as God was, God is. And just as God is, so will God be. You understand that? Again, just as God was, God is. And just as God is, so will God be. God did not all of a sudden gain new qualities and attributes because of the creation. He was with His attributes as He was pre-eternally before His creation, just as He is after His creation. Now, when we look into Christian theology, the Christians believe for instance, that God had to be Trinitarian because he had to demonstrate his quality of love to his creation. Because of this quality of love, this necessitates that God be triune. To put it frankly, this is what the Christians tell us. That it was a necessity for God to be triune because God is ultimately loving and he needed someone to exhibit this quality of love too. Now, this problem of this explanation has many problems with it. First and foremost, what you are asserting is that the only quality God had in the beginning was love. The only quality that God had in the beginning was love. And because of that, he needed someone or something else to express and display that love too. But when we look at this, if we take that same argument and acknowledge the fact that God has other attributes aside from love, and then we try to put it in this equation that Christians give us, then it completely destroys their argument. For instance, God is also just, and he enacts justice. God also has anger, and he exhibits anger, vindication, wrath. So if we take this same analogy that Christians give us and we substitute love with other attributes of God, like his anger, like his justice, like his indignation, like his wrath, like his punishment, then are we going to dare attempt to say that God was exhibiting these qualities with himself? Was he showing wrath and indignation and anger and justice upon himself? Is this what we trying to express about God? Because if you are able to use love as a quality to justify Trinitarianism and that God be triune, then you have to accept the fact that God is not only possession of love as a quality, but there's other qualities and attributes that he possessed that also would have had to been displayed in this Trinity. So we find this to be very untenable and very fallacious and very blasphemous. So we don't believe that God acquired these things. God was loving even before there was anyone to love. God was forgiving even before there was anyone ever to forgive. And the creation did not all of a sudden add anything to God. Further, the Christians believe in the incarnation. They believe that God affixed to himself, took upon himself another nature. So he added to himself, something was added to God as a result of incarnation. A nature, a human nature that he used to manifest himself to creation. But again, you're adding something to God for one reason or another. And in our Aqeedah, we will understand it clearly. Lam yazdad bi kawnihim shay'a, that there was nothing of creation that added to God. Lam yakun qablahum min sifatihi. This is the previous point. That was not already with God before the creation that God brought into existence. So nothing added to God. Nothing was added to God. God is immutable. God is unchangeable. We cannot change God. We cannot mold God and reshape God. God, again, God is as he was and will remain as he is. That's it. Next point. 16. ليس منذ خلق الخلق استفاد اسمه الخالق ولا بأحداث البرية استفاد اسمه الباري. Meaning, God did not acquire the name the Creator since He created the creation. It wasn't the act of creating creation that God now became the Creator. He didn't acquire this name or this attribute of creating as a result of creating the creation. Nor did He acquire the name, the Maker, as a result of bringing about and making the creation. When God created, that did not necessitate now He be called the Creator. He was the Creator, Al-Khaliq, before anything was ever created by Him. And He was Al-Bari, the Maker, before anything was ever made by Him. Why? Because He remained with His attributes as He was, and He will remain that way forever, as we already discussed in an earlier point. Right? وَمَا كَانَ, the last point, وَمَا كَانَ بِصِفَاتِهِ أَزَلِيًّا كَذَلِكَ لَا يَزَالُ عَلَيْهَا أَبَدِيًّا. Just as He was with His attributes pre-eternally, like that, He remains with His attributes forever, infinitively. And He did not acquire the name of the Creator since the creating of the creation, and nor did He acquire the name of the Maker since the bringing about and the making of the creation.